funny that we're in the midst of a series on busyness, because I got to tell you, this morning with baptisms and just some preparation and stuff, I feel like I'm running crazy here and getting a little bit of a sweat going, but I guess maybe I'm preaching to myself today. So a couple of things here I wanted to go over and get started here. One of those is, put my notes here real quick. Last week, Bob Lyme preached, and he was sharing a message with us, and really, he wanted me to remind everyone that this was an invitation. Okay, Bob is spearheading an effort to give people an opportunity to grow at deeper levels. If you want to grow in your relationship with Jesus, you want to grow in your knowledge of who God is, if you want to grow in your ability to serve and to honor and obey God, we want to provide a platform for you to do that. If you want to grow in your relationships with God's people and in fellowship, we're trying to create a platform whereby you can do that instead of just pointing our fingers every week and saying, you need to grow, you need to do better. We need to provide a platform. And so Bob is spearheading an effort to coordinate small groups, and he's inviting anybody who would be interested in either leading and or hosting a small group to please contact him or Pastor Bob or me or Dana or Sue, our church secretaries, to let us know that you have an interest so that we can offer a platform whereby people can grow. And so we'd invite you into that, and I sure hope that people will jump on that, because frankly, we're blessed. We are very lucky. A lot of Sundays I walk out of here and I think, the room was pretty full, it was great, or the room wasn't so full. And we worry about the size of the congregation and things like that, but God doesn't worry about the size of the congregation. God's more concerned with what the people who are here are doing. And we've got great people here. We've got great people. Not only a great worship team, I can't believe that our worship team is the quality and the level that they are. I mean, this is like CDs that we're listening to up here. Amen? It's like CDs. And some of that is because the church has said, hey, we're going to give you guys good equipment. And some of it I haven't forgotten. I have to shave. Yeah. I want to honor your time. If I kept you here until noon, you'd be upset. And we have a meeting after church. But I will honor that commitment, because some of you honored the commitment to get us a new keyboard. So thank you for that. And but beyond that, guys, beyond just the level of the music we have and the generosity of the church, our God has been very generous and blessed us in a lot of ways. I know there are people in this room that have beautiful, beautiful, wonderful homes. And sometimes you may wonder, why do I have all this? Well, it could be, I don't know that it is, but it could be that God's given that to you that you might use it to grow His kingdom. That you might use it to be a host, to invite people in. We've got people in our church that have incredible knowledge of the Scriptures, have incredible stories in their lives of how they came to Christ. And you guys would be fantastic teachers. As I look across the room, in fact, I'm kind of wondering, who will the students be? I mean, we've got so many people in here that are qualified to be great teachers, and I just hope that we will do this. And so I'm inviting you into that process, and I hope that you will respond. Well, as I said a few moments ago, we're in the midst of a series that I've called Busy Signals. In fact, we're entering the fifth installment of that series, Busy Signals. And, I haven't caught any flack yet, but the day's not over. Did you notice the title today of today's? Families Suck. Now, some people would say, I can't believe you're saying that in church. And I'll be clear on what that means in a minute. And if I'm honest with you, there was a part of me that hoped that, maybe the play on words could somehow pique someone's interest. And maybe somebody from the neighborhood would come in here to find out, what are they talking about there? And so, there was some of that. But the reality is this. Any of us who are part of our family, whether you're a child, whether you're a parent, whether you have grown kids, we all know that families suck the energy, your patience, your time, your resource, your compassion. They can suck these things right out of us. And so we're going to talk about that today. But before we do, I want to help to help you to understand, why are we even talking about busyness? Because is it bad to be busy? Is being busy a problem? And I would say no. Being busy in and of itself is not a problem. However, busyness can be an incredible distraction. It can be an incredible distraction. And distractions are important. So think, if you will, about any street magician, any con artist, any pickpocket, any political press agent, any of these folks. They know that distraction can really be powerful. In fact, if you watch any illusionists, the David Copperfields or David Blaine's or Chris Angels of the world, their job is to keep your eye over here while the action is taking place over here. They keep your attention here while the real action is taking place over here. And I would suggest to you today that we have an enemy who is doing the exact same thing. We have an enemy who is trying to keep our attention over here while the real action, the God work, is taking place over here. And that the enemy wants to keep you distracted from the things that God is doing, the things that God is inviting us into. But sometimes we become so distracted that we can't focus on what's really happening. When I was a teacher, I used to use a lesson that I'm sure many other teachers use too. And for some of you, you may have heard this before, or seen this, or even participated before. So I would go into the classroom, and it was an activity to get kids to follow directions. And so I would present a sheet to them where there's a set of 20 directions, and they're crazy directions. Do your best impression of a gorilla. Stand on one foot and hop up and down. Sing Yankee Doodle went to town. And these crazy directions, but the very last direction said, ignore everything else on this page except for direction 1. So let's go back up. Direction 1 said, read this page before you do anything. Okay, so do you see the trick? If not, you want to come up here and do it? Okay. Well, hopefully you see the trick. And for you guys, it's not going to be that powerful because you see the trick. But with the kids, it was never about the activity. It was never about the instrument being used. In fact, the success or failure of that activity depended entirely on my ability to distract them, on my ability to sell this thing. And so I would go into the classroom and I would tell them right up front, listen, some of you have probably done this activity before. You may have participated in it before. And if you have, that's unfair. You can't be a part of this game because you already know some of the directions. And so if you've done this before, I'm going to ask you to just simply put your pencil down and sit quietly and patiently and enjoy what the rest of the class is doing. So I would try my best to get those kids to kind of be quiet. And then, of course, I would try to tap into the other kids and say, listen, this is not for the faint of heart. This activity is all about those of you who are not afraid of what your peers think of you. You don't care what they think. And doggone it, you're going to have fun, and you're going to be animated, and you're going to give full energy, and you just don't care what anybody else thinks. And if you care what other people think, then you don't even deserve to play this game. And by the way, we're going to have a prize. We're going to have a prize for the person who finishes not only in first place, so you got to be the fastest. You have to be the fastest. You also have to be the most accurate. You cannot skip any directions. You have to get every single item in order to win the prize. So we're looking for speed, we're looking for accuracy, and last but not least, I'm looking for some heart. If I ask you to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy, I don't want you to whisper at your seat. You're going to get up and, I'm a Yankee Doodle, right? That's what I want to see. And so I would get the kids all excited, and they would start doing the activity, and I'd have 17-year-olds going around the classroom, jumping off desks. They'd be jumping around, and I'm a Yankee. And they're doing crazy things, hopping on one foot and square dancing with each other. And they're going through all this stuff, and everybody finished at a different pace. But you know what happened when they got to that last direction? Everybody had that face, the one like you need Pepto-Bismol, that face. They all had that face. Well, at least in the classrooms where it worked. There were some classrooms, however, where it didn't work because there would inevitably be one student who had done this activity before. Or they just were smart and they caught on. And that one student would always start shouting, oh, I've done this before. I know what this is. I'm not doing that. No, you're not getting me. Well, that ruins it for everybody. Now everybody knows there's a trick involved, and so nobody wants to do this thing. Or there might be another student where a young man would just, he would sit down at his desk and he would puff out his chest and he would cross his arms over as if he were taking a prize fight or a publicity shot. And he would sit there with that, you're all inferior to me face. Which was also a distraction because other people in the room would be wondering, why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he participating? And while my intentions were We're never evil. I think it's a good analogy for how our world, or perhaps it's our culture, or perhaps it's the enemy, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a good analogy for how things can sometimes work for us. We are constantly being distracted from the things of God. We're being distracted from the directions that really matter, the things that we're supposed to do, so that we can run through life like gorillas. And I wonder what would happen if you and I were the students that I hated. What would happen in life if we stood up and said, no, don't fall for it. Don't believe that. That's not right. I know the truth. Let me tell you the truth. What would happen if we were those kinds of people and we told the world, don't be distracted. Don't look over there. Here's the trick. A video I shared with my students, and even here at the youth group, there's a guy who does this trick, and he takes a couple of cards, gives them to a stranger on the street. He asks him, what are your cards? And then he starts clicking the guy's hands together, and he's counting like to 20. 1, 2, 3, 4, 18, 19, 20. And he says, okay, look at your cards. The guy looks at him. He goes, you see how they switched? Well, first of all, they didn't switch. And the guy's looking at the cards, and he's like, yeah! And all of his friends are like, man, you're dumb! A few seconds later, the magician reaches into his pocket and pulls out the guy's watch. He took his watch off when they were doing the trick. You go back and watch it the second time, and you know what? It's not that amazing. Because the second time, what are you focused on? The watch. And you see every move the magician is making. You see him undoing the clasp, pulling the watch off. You even see at the end where he pulls it off and points and reaches to, because when he points to the cards, where does everyone's eyes go? To the cards. And he slides it in his pocket. But the second time is see it all. We don't get distracted. Not the second time. What would happen if we were focused and we did not get distracted from the message that Jesus gives us in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 through 20, actually. You've heard this many, many times if you've been a part of our youth group or here at the church, because I bring it up often, because I believe it's our job, it's our mission. Jesus came and told his disciples, I have been given all authority in heaven and on earth. Therefore, and therefore is important, because I have authority, I'm giving you an order. I'm giving you a direction. I'm telling you what to do because I have all authority. And if I have all authority, your job is to obey. Therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I have given them. Our busyness often distracts us from the things of God. Things like prayer, Bible study, fellowship, service, fasting, thereby rendering us impotent for the mission. You see, we're not preparing ourselves for the mission, and so then we can't accomplish the mission. This idea that families suck. I want to be clear, and if you know me, if you know what I believe, if you've listened to my sermons, if you've looked at my life, I hope one thing that will be overwhelmingly clear to you is that I need a new stand. Now, I hope the one thing that will be overwhelmingly clear to you is that I value families. So this title is just being silly. I value families. I value the importance of families. In fact, I've gone as far as to say that Grace Fellowship Church, a part of Grace Fellowship Church's vision and mission under my leadership will be to create an environment where we can have strong, healthy families. It means that much to me. But as I said before, sometimes we get distracted. And in this busy world with all of our day-to-day responsibilities and our hopes and our dreams, we can even be distracted by good things. You've heard the saying that too much of a good thing. There can be too much of a good thing. And I think today, in our families, we be doing too much. If you'll permit me to, I'd like to read you an excerpt from a book by Rick Fowler and Cassie Finley. It's a book called Too Busy to Live, and bear with me because it's just a little long, but I think it does a great job. And I would ask you to find yourself. Find yourself. The authors write this. At 5:30 a.m., John and Karen's clock radio begins to blare soft rock music. Time to start another typical day. By 6 o'clock, they have dressed in time to wake up Amy, their 7-year-old daughter, and Josh, their 15-year-old son. They have to leave early today for Amy's 7:30 a.m. piano lesson. It used to be on Friday after school, but Amy was having trouble concentrating, so her teacher suggested early Tuesday morning when she's not so tired. As Josh keeps the kids moving, Karen brews the coffee, sets out the children's breakfasts, empties the dishwasher, and packs Amy's lunch. At 6:30, she and Josh wolf down a bagel with coffee just before the children enter the kitchen for their breakfast blitz. John has to go straight to his office for an early staff meeting, so Karen loads the children into the Explorer and drops Amy off at her piano lesson. She has just enough time to drive Josh to his high school, fill the car with gas, and double back for Amy. Then she drives to Amy's elementary school, where Karen teaches 3rd grade. After school, Karen rushes to the high school to pick up Josh and drive him to a soccer game at 4:30. When she isn't cheering for Josh, she is on her cell phone coordinating her schedule with John. He needs to work late, so Karen will have to drive Josh to the church youth meeting at 7 o'clock tonight. When the game ends, Karen and the kids eat supper at McDonald's, drive home for Josh to shower and dress, then leave for church. Returning at about 7:20, Karen insists that Amy perform the practice exercises her piano teacher assigned. Josh arrives at 8. He has just enough time to make and eat a sandwich for his supper before it is time to pick up Josh at church. They return at 9 p.m. John helps Josh with his homework until about 10 o'clock while Karen goes through Amy's bedtime routine, then washes clothes and tidies up the house. While Karen grades papers from 10 to 11, Josh does internet research for a term paper under his father's supervision. John wants to make sure that Josh develops the skills he will need to excel at the Ivy League university he has picked out for his son. At 11 o'clock, they start their bedtime routines. They will all need the rest. Josh has another soccer game tomorrow and a karate lesson afterwards. Amy goes to choir practice at church. And then they go on in the book to say that while this story is fictional, it's based on some of the true accounts of the families in their church. And they point out that Wednesday is a light day. I don't know all of you, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but do any of you have schedules like Karen and Josh and John and Amy? Anybody out there with schedules like that? Sure feels that way to me. I know I feel that way. And as I go through that story, I think, these are good parents. Woke the kids up, made them breakfast, got them to and from the piano lessons, to and from school, got them to soccer practice, helped them with their homework, went through the bedtime routine. They did all the things that good parents do. But what strikes me in this Christian book is it was Christless. Where was Jesus? He wasn't there. And I know that story is written to make a point and to help us settle on that, but the question could be raised for you and me. This is not a raise your hand question. This is a look in the mirror question. This is an examine your heart question. Where's Jesus in your routine? Now, some of us are feeling pretty good right now. We're saying, no, Jesus is in my routine. And I can tell you that he's in mine. I can also tell you that he's not first. And I can tell you that when things need to get cut, oftentimes the Jesus stuff gets cut. Janine and I had dinner last night with some dear friends, and this family chooses to homeschool their children. And in our conversation, the mom was sharing, she ran into a story just like this. She was looking at their curriculum, and they have their math, and their science, and their writing, and their reading, and their spelling, and their handwriting, all the different things she has to do. And she said, we've gotten so busy and so caught up in the curriculum that I put, well, okay, the Bible stuff, that's going to go at the end. The Bible stuff will be at the end. And then she finds that there's just no time in the day for the Bible stuff. And here's the irony. The Bible stuff is why she chose to homeschool her kids. I don't care if you homeschool or send your kids to public school or private school. I'm not preaching on that today. But the Bible stuff is the exact reason she kept her kids home. And it's the first thing she cut out of the curriculum. She said she was convicted by that, and I can tell you that she was, because as we sat at the kitchen table and we ate dinner, I saw the whiteboard in the corner for that day's lesson. And first on the list was Bible. She realized that she's been cutting that part out, and that she needs to bring that back in. You know, I could start to preach right now and ramble about how busy we all are in families, but I think we probably all know that. I think we do it. And wherever you are, maybe you're somebody who doesn't have kids yet. You say, well, wait a minute, I don't know if this sermon's for me. Maybe you do have kids, or maybe your kids are grown. You say, well, maybe this isn't for me. This is for all of us. It's for all of us, because we're all part of families. And I'll tell you what, if your kids are grown, or if you don't have kids yet, take pity on the rest of us. And I don't mean that in a funny way. You can see some of the busyness. Maybe there's a way that you can pitch in. Maybe there's a way that as a brother or sister in Christ, as a family of believers, you can come alongside and say, hey, can I help you? Can I relieve some of that burden? Maybe it isn't a pitch to watch my kids. I don't know. We can find out. There's another pitch coming in a few minutes. So, but no, I think there's great wisdom to that. To say, hey, can I come alongside you? And I'll tell you what, I should say this. Janine and I are so very fortunate, not only for our family, but for all of you who have done that for us. Thank you. Thank you. All the time. People pitching in to help us. And so, you know, we're grateful for that. I think one of the reasons why we have to do all these things, whether it's the piano, the soccer, somebody was telling me the other day, they get $50 an hour for tutoring. $50 an hour for tutoring. That sounds great if you can tutor, but I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, parents are so desperate for their kids to get ahead. And I thought, well, I guess if my child was really struggling, if they were falling behind and they needed the help, but it turns out that some of the students aren't behind. Some of the students are the AP kids. They're in the top 10% of their class. And so why are they paying the $50 an hour? Because they have to achieve more. They have to go higher and be better. So I was reading another book.